Cinematic is far more than just slow motion and epic color grades. It's how you light, it's how you move the camera, it's the choices you make when it comes to frame rates, transitions, sound, and the overall mood. I'm going to be breaking down 5 of my core tips when it comes to filming cinematic content that absolutely hit hard, whether it's for high energy sports action, commercial work, or narrative work. From lighting and frame rates to editing, sound design, and color grading. This is pretty much going to be a full blueprint in how I film and edit. And this video is brought to you by the Kingston FURY Renegade G5 SSD, but more on them later. So first of all, we're going to be talking about lighting. Now, lighting is one of the key fundamentals when it comes to filming cinematic content. And a lot of people tend to use upstage lighting or filming on the dark side. Now, creating shadows within a 2D image is exactly what you want to be doing in any kind of scene. You do not want to be filming something that is just completely flat and lit from every single direction with no shadow. This is just going to make your footage look really bland, boring, and just completely flat and two-dimensional. As videographers, filmmakers, and storytellers, we want to try and be able to create shadow, but also depth within the scene, and creating shadows within that scene is going to help tell that story. Now, the most easy way to explain this is that your key light should be about 45-degree angle from your actual camera. So you can tell my camera is directly in front of me. My key light is literally on this 45-degree angle that's giving me almost like a side light with a little bit of light casting on my right-hand side. And then I've actually got a little bit of a shadow side here, which you can actually use negative fill, or naturally, if the key light is strong enough, there is going to be that negative fill anyway. Then you can see here, I've got a rim light or a hair light that's actually motivated by the lamp that's in the background. Now, when it comes to creating cinematic lighting on set, what you want to try and do is have all kind of lights motivated from a source. So it looks a little bit more realistic than just putting a light directly in front of the talent and obviously just lighting the talent. So what you want to try and do is light the space, but then the face. A lot of people say light spaces, not faces, but I actually like to say light spaces, then faces, because you still want that talent to be relatively lit in that particular scene. And you can see in this scene, this essentially is the window that's in this side right here that's giving me the motivated source. Now, you can see the window is actually just lighting up the edge here and obviously providing a whole bunch of ambience coming into this direction. Now, when it comes to my actual lighting, I wrapped the light around the body. So this is where you're seeing the extra bits of light in this area. So my key light essentially is right here, wrapping that light directly around the talent that's actually providing a little bit more on this side. So it looks like the window is lighting the talent, but it's not. It's my light source itself. And then I actually have a little bit of rim light here with a 300C coming in from this direction and just pushing a little bit of light on the edge, which you can see right there. Now, you don't actually have to have a backlight, but it definitely does help to separate the talent from the background. But in this situation, you can see there's a whole bunch of light already in the background, and she's wearing black, so she's already being separated from the background. But this light wrapping here is definitely the key, because this would be completely black and she would only be lit on this edge. And like I said, you want to be able to light the space, but also the face, because if I didn't actually, have the key light that's raising the levels right here, she would be almost dark here. This side would actually be lit and this wouldn't. There would be a little bit too much shadow in my opinion. But even then, this is only the start of the movement. She walks over to her right-hand side, or our camera left, and that's where the talent was actually lit for that spot. So you do actually have to take into consideration of where the talent is situated with that whole lighting of the scene, but then you need to shape that light around your talent. Now, when it comes to the basic 3-point lighting, you don't have to do this all the time. You don't have to have a rim light. You don't have to have a key light. You could create cinematic images by making things completely silhouetted, so they're completely backlit. Your talent is quite dark. There are so many different situations where you don't have to utilize the basic 3-point lighting. You can even just have a standard key light with no rim light. As long as that key light is being motivated by some sort of source, then you should be perfectly fine. Now this key light that I actually have here is actually motivated by the window that's literally right in front of me. The window is actually lighting me. I just have an extra light that's bouncing off the wall to create a little bit more light, and a light that is actually consistent as well, and the sun's not going in and out of the clouds and, you know, creating dark spots, so the light is more consistent. Now, when I'm editing my cinematic or sports content, this is where I actually need to utilize my really nice fast-paced computer, because I've got a whole bunch of slow motion footage, really high resolution footage, a ton of sound effects layers, and obviously a ton of video layers as well, and my system needs to keep up. So I've been using the Kingston FURY Renegade G5 SSD, and I mean, honestly, it's been a bit of a game changer when I actually bring the footage directly into my PC, because I make sure I drop all my footage directly into my local drive, and that allows me to edit directly off my local drive. Now, this specific SSD is called the Kingston FURY Renegade G5 M.2 SSD. It has extreme performance with ranging of speeds of up to 14,200 megabytes per second read speeds and 11,000 megabytes per second write speeds. This is absolutely perfect for us creators when we're trying to optimize our editing performance. Especially when it comes to having all your files on a local SSD, this is going to help scrub through the timeline so much faster, specifically if you have a whole bunch of, you know, adjustment layers, video layers, sound effects layers. This is going to make it much easier and faster, and especially if you are using 4K, 6K, or even 8K files, having a larger capacity for the drive is going to help you within your workflow. But I mean, if I am traveling around and I need to get some of the edits, I will pull that off onto an external SSD and start utilizing that with my MacBook. And this is where I've been utilizing these small SSD Kingston external drives. Now, these two specifically is the ones that I've got, the XS2000, which is the 2 terabyte silver one, and the XS1000, which is the 1 terabyte black one. And the XS2000 is perfect for pro users, and the XS1000 is great for everyone looking for a compact storage. And this thing has crazy fast read and write speeds, as you don't want to be sitting around waiting for media to load or for the rendering to catch up. I just want to be able to drop the clip in my timeline, lock into beats, and keep moving forward. Plus, one of the biggest things when it comes to the post-production and editing is the sound effects, and this is where I obviously keep all my sound effects in the local drive as well, because there is a ton that I actually utilize. Because when it comes to sound effects, this really enhances the actual cinematic motion that you're actually seeing. And I mean, look and listen to the difference between this footage without sound effects.
Boom, boom, boom. Baby, I'm trying to get paid. Legends don't die in a grave. They live through the story they made, okay? Boom, 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 boom. Baby, I'm trying to get paid. Legends don't die in a grave. Legends don't die anywhere.
And then obviously this footage with sound effects.
Boom, 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 boom. Baby, I'm trying to get paid. Through the story they made, okay? Boom, 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 boom. Baby, I'm trying to get paid. Legends don't die in a grave. Legends don't die anywhere.
Now, I do also have to talk a little bit about sound, because we have to talk about non-diegetic sound and diegetic sound. Now, the difference between non-diegetic sound and diegetic sound essentially is that diegetic sound is what exists within the world. So, for instance, if I am filming someone doing CrossFit, you can hear the footsteps, you can hear the plates clanking together, then obviously the bar lifting up, heavy breathing from the actual athlete. It's the sound that actually exists within their world. Non-diegetic sound is essentially the sound effects that I'm putting in to enhance the action. The thumping noises and all those kind of whoosh noises, grinding sounds, heartbeats, all these things that you just add into the actual final footage that just makes it look absolutely epic. Now, when it comes to choosing frame rates, this is very important, but it is situational of how you're actually going to be editing. Now, a lot of my sports shoots, I try and make sure I film things on purpose. So I'm utilizing 25 frames per second, but if I do want to slow particular scenes down in post-production, this is where I'll actually film in 50 or 100 frames per second, but I'll choose those very particular moments. Now, for the main thing that you don't want to film absolutely everything on 50 or 100 frames per second is actually your motion blur, because even if you still are at 180 degree shutter or twice your frame rate for your shutter speed, you're actually going to get really sharp images that don't necessarily look natural. Motion blur essentially is what we see naturally to our eye, and when things are a little bit too sharp and the shutter is cranked, that actually looks a little bit off. I mean, that could be a perfect piece of storytelling, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing that if that is done on purpose. But if you're doing it all the time just for the sake of, potentially slowing things down in post-production, filming 60 or 120 or 50 or 100 frames per second, then that's kind of not really a good way to film. But for obvious reasons, when it comes to slow motion and creating some pretty cinematic images, you can actually do a whole bunch of speed ramping when it comes to regular pace motion, 25 frames per second or 24, then slowing it down in post-production and ramping that speed. This can make things look a lot different, and obviously it changes up the pace, which can keep the audience interested in that video. Now, I tend to do this a lot when it comes to my sports and action. I'll sometimes film in 100 frames per second where I completely slow it down 4 times slow motion and then speed ramp it back in, thus creating a little bit of a transition point as well. And this is a great segue when it comes to transitions in camera. I try and do as many transitions within the camera itself and not actually in post-production, although that still is an option if you really want to utilize that. Now, in terms of my sports and action, you don't obviously have to do this every single time, but you can actually whip into frame or whip away from frame, and this will actually give you a little bit of footage to utilize in post-production for these kind of whip transitions. Now, like I said, you can actually do this in post-production as well, but it really depends on how natural this will fit within the footage itself. But I like to try and do things in camera as best as possible. Obviously, the color grading is one of the most important when it comes to creating something absolutely cinematic, because a lot of times you can actually make things look a little bit more epic with a very moody color grade. Now, it really does depend on obviously the story you're trying to tell, but then obviously who's it for as well, what the client actually wants. Now, I do actually have a full beginner's color grading course when it comes to Premiere Pro and how I actually do my color grading, so you can go directly into that and check that one out if you want. So anyway, my friends, I hope you found this video useful. Obviously, get out there, start making some cinematic content, really up your game when it comes to the lighting, camera movements, and obviously the post-production side with editing, sound effects, and also that color grading. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.